All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Thank you for joining us for this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. K-12 BITS is a new training initiative to help you augment your internal training efforts. Harnessing our community of K-12 Blackboard schools, BITS will share top strategies and pedagogy for both increasing teacher efficiency and improving learning outcomes. K-12 BITS is free and easy to participate and available for teachers, academic leaders, and administrators. My name is Katie Gallagher. I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Blackboard's K-12 Teaching and Learning Solutions, and I will serve as the moderator for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. I'm always open to new ideas for topics for this series, so please let me know if you're interested in presenting for a future session. Just email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. I want to thank Claudine Townley, a Blackboard product expert, and Colleen Smith from our K-12 marketing team, who will be helping answer questions today in the chat. We'll be joining you for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. Okay, each webinar in this series will be recorded, so search for the Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series playlist or the K-12 specific playlist on the Blackboard YouTube channel. You'll receive this recording and the presentation slides a couple days after the webinar by email. In addition, getting a lot of background noise. If you, Colleen, if you could mute all the lines, that would be very helpful. So after this presentation, you'll be receiving the recording and the presentation slides in a couple of days. You'll also receive an invitation to participate in a professional learning community online in course sites that's designed to augment this series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please consider accepting this invitation and participate in this new online PLC. I want to go over some of the upcoming webinars that are free and open to all. You can see them here on this slide on the BITS registration site. Look for the K-12 green icon here to identify special sessions dedicated for K-12, but you are certainly welcome to attend any session within any BITS track. Our next K-12 BITS session will be a Trailblazer in the Digital Age, Monday, April 21st at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time with Ruth Payne and Linda Shriver from Clay County Public Schools in Florida. Today, we're very excited to have Lawrence Public Schools. Angelique Kobler, Diane Bailey, and Danira Flores will explore blended learning, disrupting the factory model. So we're going to be looking at how do we take advantage of the strengths of both traditional instruction and online learning using the right tools for the right situation. Learn how Lawrence Public Schools in Kansas is investigating ways to alter the learning environment and custom design instruction based on student needs, increasing the number of blended classrooms from 8 to 150, undoing the factory model of education. Angelique Kobler leads the team of educational administrators for Lawrence Public Schools. As the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, she partners with dynamic educators who are leading the way in innovative classroom practices. She shares her passion for disrupting the status quo via social media. Diana Bailey was awarded the 2014 Elementary Educator of the Year for Lawrence Public Schools. Diana is in her 11th year of teaching 5th grade, and she continues to strategically weave content with 21st century technologies while she engages her students in relevant personalized learning. She welcomes observers to her classroom as they discover the magic that parents and students alike claim has students arriving to school early, engaging in learning beyond the school walls 5 days a week. Danira Fernandez Flores is in her 19th year in education. Her background is in Spanish and mathematics education. She's led Free State High School's Department of Mathematics as department chair for the last 8 years. She's transitioned into a district-wide leadership position for mathematics now. As a teacher on special assignment for mathematics for grades 6 through 12, her goals include successful implementation of KCCRS across Lawrence Public Schools math classrooms and assisting teachers in leveraging 21st century technologies to increase student engagement and learning. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to our three experts. And I'm going to mute myself and want to be sure that our team at Lawrence is unmuted. And I'll go ahead and advance the slides for you, but welcome and thank you for leading today's session.
Thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks so much for this opportunity for us to share our stories with you and how we're disrupting the factory model by using blended learning. This is a topic we're very passionate about, and we're excited to host this webinar today. I'm Diana Bailey. I was the one in the tiara. And I started blended learning a couple years ago and really was approached by my principal during the summer when she mentioned Flipping Your Classroom in a book by John Bergman. And after reading that, I decided, wow, what an amazing idea. If my students could be practicing more in the classroom with me and doing more homework, more direct instruction, little snippets at home, and then I would get this more one-on-one with the students. And so a spark was ignited, and I kind of took it from there. The district also saw some of the qualities needed in my classroom and chose for me to be one of the pilot teachers for our field test that started 2 years ago.
This is Danira Flores. I'm currently a teacher on special assignment for mathematics and world languages 612. I've been in education for 19 years now. And last year I was a math teacher at one of our high schools. I was approached from my principal with regards to blended learning when we were discussing what my professional goals were to be for the next school year. I had always had increasing the use of technology in my classroom as a goal for the last, over 10 years now. I always thought that it was a key to engaging students and help them learn mathematics more conceptually. I thought that items like graphing calculators could help kids make better connections to expressions, equations, and real-life situations. And that components kept coming into my classroom that I kept being engaged with, like overhead projectors and the like. So when blended learning came into the scene, I was really excited to see what kind of support our district could provide so that I could bring more technology into the classroom. And at the time, I was thinking more of the stuff. What could I do with the stuff, and less about how my philosophy or pedagogy might change as the environment in my classroom was changing. So that's how I was first initiated in blended learning.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Angelique Kobler, Assistant Superintendent for Lawrence Public Schools. This is my 10th year in the district and my 20th year in the field of education. I come with a background in the classroom, a building principal, and now at the district level. What I wanted to share with you is a little background on the field test that really ignited our passion for this instructional strategy. In the fall of 2012, we started discussing in teaching and learning what could we do differently, because the strategies we have tried just weren't producing the results for all of our students that we wanted to see. So starting with 2 questions, and the questions were, can we increase student engagement, and can we provide a resource that maximizes our teachers' time with students, either in small groups or one-to-one? So those were really the impetus for us jumping into this field test. And in Lawrence, we don't typically take something off the shelf and just apply it. We really like to get in, get messy, roll our sleeves up, and take more of an organic approach to see how it works with our students, our community, our curriculum, and our professional educators. So we went through about 40 classrooms looking for a specific disposition, a disposition of teacher that demonstrated grit, perseverance, and a willingness to collaborate and be very open about the mistakes that could potentially occur in a field test. We narrowed that observation down to 8 volunteers, and 2 of them are joining me today. So through the spring of 2013, we got in and we got messy. We tried to figure out the best way to apply this instructional strategy in Lawrence, and practiced with an LMS and came together and collaborated. There were some tears, we'll be honest, there were some tears. How does this work? And several are asking, I want the recipe. What is the recipe for blended learning? So hopefully what we share with you today through our stories and our examples, we can let you peek into some of our lessons, because we're certainly still learning through this, as it's been an incredible journey for us. On this slide, we wanted to really just highlight a lot of the similarities we see today between our classrooms. While this is a very antiquated picture, there's some characteristics that come out today in our own classrooms. We still see classrooms with individual desks. We still see students sitting in rows. We still see students facing the front of the room, indicating that there is one knowledge master in the room, and it's typically the teacher. And that's a factory model of education that we want to get away from. We don't feel it's the right model for the 21st century, and we know that we need to prepare our students for college and careers, particularly our own Kansas College and Career Ready standards. So that means we need to personalize our instruction and integrate not only the use of technology, but the smart use of technology. And you think about when this picture was taken, nearly 100 years ago, we didn't have near the knowledge about brain research that we do today. And as we continue to discover and uncover better practices that help us with this instructional strategy, that's what we're using to support our work. So what is blended learning? That was a big question that came through the field test, the 8 participants, and we approach it in a very organic manner that I mentioned earlier, and you're really looking at how much of traditional instruction is still very effective, because we have students that need that style and they're very successful with that style. But how do we implement and integrate and combine that with a classroom that meets the needs of our students? So what does a blended learning classroom look like, feel like, and sound like? And it really involves the entire environment, not only the instructional strategies, but the physical environment. What furniture do we have in the room, and how much of the room does the teacher take up? Also, what is the disposition of the teacher? I mentioned grit, perseverance, the willingness to collaborate, and also to be open about the mistakes that we're making. So we talk about an effective combination of different modes of delivery and the combination of multimedia with traditional instruction. One of the greatest questions that we discuss as a district that we like to pose to the audience is one that we've addressed ourselves and really wrangled with, and it's, has teaching occurred if learning hasn't?
As we began our journey, there's really a large paradigm shift in the learning and teaching that happens as we delve in and really get our hands messy and try to learn more about blended learning. I realized that I was really this actress in front of the classroom, doling out tiny bits of information, almost spoon feeding each of my children each day as I did my dog and pony show up front, and trying to hit for the middle and hoping to hit every kid, and hopefully they weren't bored, and all this sort of stuff. It was exhausting, and I was missing people. So I really had to kind of take a reflective look and see what could I change. And as I mentioned earlier, my first kind of shift was, well, can I take that 40-minute lecture, that 50-minute lecture, can I condense it into a 5 to 10-minute video, send it at home as homework, and then have more of this practice time? The students, they came in charge of their learning. Can they learn without me just, spoon-feeding it to them? And sure enough, as I started flipping my lessons, I noticed they can. They don't necessarily need me every day. And others would need me, and I'd get that one-on-one practice. The biggest shift for me, though, reflecting back, is this idea about homework. I really, you have to do your homework. It has to be done. You come to a school regardless of what happens at home. And I really, with the flip, it was great, because these students that you have that can't do the homework or don't do the homework anyway, they're no longer coming to school defeated in the morning. And that was one of my favorite shifts of seeing is this confidence. So, you've got your kid that, plays basketball or baseball until 9 p.m. and the kid that just hates math anyway, so they're not going to do it, or somebody whose home life maybe isn't ideal for homework. Well, they no longer show up to school already in the negative or already defeated for the entire day. Instead, they show up, they go over to a TV or they get out a laptop, they watch my little video, and they're back on the same level playing field as the rest of the students. So that was one of my biggest shifts. Danira is going to share kind of her shifts as well.
So my colleague Diana is talking about her 5th grade classroom, and I pretty much share the same paradigm shift in my 9th through 12th classroom. So let's take a peek into what my classroom looks like. And as you can see, I had the traditional desks with rows, and my desk is over there by the window, and I've got some boards, but I keep track of homework assignment, and I have planned every minute of the 52 minutes that those students are going to be with me. Starting with the 20 minutes I usually spend reviewing homework assignments. And so if you kids have homework questions, they get posted on the board, and the entire classroom is sequestered to my re-explaining what those few students may not have understood. And after we did our review of homework, and of course I'm talking about our traditional math classroom here, I then spend a few 15, 20 minutes in my lecture. Of course, my lecture is so fantastic, they need to be focused in on every bit of morsel. I'm feeding them. And I've got sometimes kids in the back with their book open, maybe trying to start their homework because for some reason they feel they know some of this material already, and I do not appreciate that. I need them to be focused on me and to please close their books so that we can continue our lesson. Well, with blended learning, there was an extreme makeover that came over my classroom. And if we take a look at this next slide, you're going to see that same classroom, but now there's different things that have occurred. My rows are gone. So with the extreme classroom makeover, my desks were removed and enter round tables, kidney tables, 2 big screen TVs where students can collaborate. And of course, with this new arrangement, I no longer had a seating chart. So that was a little, well, no, not little, huge mind shift for me. How could I not assign the seats for my students? And so what is the result of this environment? So I'm going to invite you to spend about 10 seconds studying this picture. What do you notice? What's going on in this classroom? And can you find the teacher? So in one part of the room, you notice one student working alone. This person just wants to focus on her own work, whatever that might be, maybe finishing last night's assignments. Behind her, you see 2 groups of kids. One has that red sweater, and in that group, you don't see a single computer there. They're trying to collaborate with each other, and kneeling next to them, that would be me. That's the teacher, working individually with these 2 students, and that third one in the red sweater, he's listening in. He's interested as well. Across from them is a group of students collaborating with their laptops, and here they could have been watching a lesson on those laptops, or maybe looking for some information on the internet. Behind them on the smart board, you see what you might have assumed was a teacher, but that's actually students manipulating activities that are being projected on my smart board. Everyone is engaged, everyone is involved in an activity that they have chosen related to our topics, and their needs are being met at the individual level. Now, don't get me wrong, this did not occur overnight. We did not leave for Disneyland over the weekend and come back and everything magically was in place. It took a lot of hard work, many hours of reflection on my part with Angelique, trying to figure out how we would change the norms in my classroom to prepare my students for independent work. And
the creation of those norms was just a big leap as well in my part, because it meant that I was giving up control. The rules weren't coming from me. The students and I discussed what the rules would have to be in this environment in which they would get a whole bunch of freedoms that they have never realized before, from selecting how to learn to selecting what technology to use, from their phones to laptops, whatever they needed in order to get the learning done. So I'm going to now ask Katie to play a video of what a classroom was like live.
Thank you so much, Danira. Before I play the video, I'm going to ask everyone on the call to be sure you have your volume, your audio unmuted on your computer, because the audio is actually going to come through your computer. And presenters, if you would mute yourself, I'm going to do the same.
See, back here behind me is pre-calculus, and in my pre-calculus class I've got, I don't know if you can hear, but lots of noise going on. And there's a lot of noise because there's lots of things, different things that different groups of kids are working on. So let's see if I can point some things out. Over on this table, Darian, what are you guys working on? 9-1. So in this table, I've got some students working on a section we worked on yesterday. We were proving trigonometric identities, and for some reason, they're still needing to work with each other, help each other out to work through those problems. Over on this table, Hannah, what are you guys working on? We're watching 9-2 video. So in this table, they are taking in lesson 9-2, which works with sum and difference identities for cosine and sine. And instead of looking at a lecture from me live, which is in that corner, I was working with some students in that corner on that same lesson. They're working off of videos that we've taped and placed on our learning management system that we use in this classroom, Canvas. And so back in that corner where you see the smartboard, that's where I have given a lesson. I've got to go back to it because the kids are working on some guided practice, so I'll be there in a second. August, what are you guys on? 1 minus 2. Okay, and so those two students are helping each other. And over here on this table, with my student teacher, I've got some students that are making up a quiz and perhaps even asking her for some help. So it's kind of a very active classroom, lots of things going on, very noisy but very engaging. And I got to get back to my student. You will forever remember sum and difference for cosine, because we will remember it like
All right, I'm coming back to the presentation for you, Danira and Angelique.
Okay, this is Diana Bailey, and that last video was during our field test, and currently we use Blackboard for our learning management system. On the next slide, we're talking kind of about how there's no fixed formula. It'd be so nice if there was a great little checklist we could hand everyone and say, if you do these 6 things, you're blending. But that is not how blending works. Just the idea of a blend is that you take the different components that you need to reach your students and you shift them and change them daily or weekly or yearly as needed. During our field test, 2 of us were 5th grade teachers, and it became really obvious, we were the only 2 at the same grade level, that you know, it was a stark contrast in how we blended, in that she liked to flip different modes, where I might do a student activity book page, she likes to do a homework page. The way we kind of flipped science, or the way we set up our different modules inside of our learning management might be a little different. But it was also to meet our students' needs and their learning varieties and how they like to learn. Also, no year looks alike. What I've noticed as the second year, I've changed a lot of things for better or worse, depending on how you look at it. I also had 22 students in my field test year, and I have 30 students now, so things are going to look a little different. I've noticed, some of the differences I've noticed are this year students don't love to watch the videos as much as they like to interact one-on-one with me. That's just kind of their learning modality. Different pacings, class sizes, all sorts of things like that kind of affect your blend and how you're going to do it. Some of the components, however, we feel are pretty effective. Start with the next slide. And as you look at this next slide, this isn't my classroom, but my classroom looked very, very similar. This is a very, you can see this teacher's kind of fiefdom, if you will, in the corner. My husband and I work construction in the summers, and he built me this beautiful, massive desk, and it took up like a quarter of my room. And I began to think and reflect, is this a student-centered space, or is this all about me and my accomplishments in my life? And I had rugby posters everywhere, and I had triathlon medals and things like that. And I needed to pare that down and make it more of a student-centered environment. So as I began to clean out and get tables instead of desks, I went ahead and removed my desk so that there was more student room and student-friendly areas. I also, how often do you use a filing cabinet anymore? We have that in our computers. So I was able to get rid of a lot of stuff. I'm kind of down into one of those black crates is kind of what I have on a shelf somewhere. So it's very nice. And I also have a portable device that I can use. And the next slide.
So I'm going to step in here. This is Angelique again, and as you take a look at Diana's room now, in this slide, I'll talk a little bit about what we learned during our field test. We brought specific furniture into the classrooms. We took out the individual desks and introduced round tables, and that really supported a collaborative nature, something that really increased the discourse between our students. We were also field testing in a learning management system at that time, a different one than Blackboard, and eventually as we moved into our adoption of an LMS, we selected Blackboard because we found it to be more aligned with our K through 12 needs and supporting what we would do next with our students in a learning management system.
So as you look at this picture, this is Diana Bailey again. My class, if you see the small TV with the 3 students in the background there, that would have actually been probably my entire area where my desk would have been, and that wall would have been covered with stuff, just junk. Those students, actually all the students in this room have chosen to work where there's no assigned seats. They are working with people that they like to collaborate with. And so again, at the back TV, those students had moved on in a lesson, and so they were kind of ahead of the class. They're working on an enrichment activity. The middle group, where it's about 3 boys in the middle, you'll notice some kids have whiteboards, and the other 2 don't really have technology in front of them. It's kind of their choice. There's a whiteboard with a girl with a purple sweater in front that they like to stand up and just work on a whiteboard with their work there. And then in the foreground, you can see multiple devices. I piloted the Bring Your Own Device in class, and so kids were able to bring their own devices as well. The hardest part for me as I walked around, and one of the scariest moments that first year, was all of a sudden absolutely not being needed. I went from table to table, like begging, like, does anybody need my help? Do you need me? And I sat down because nobody needed me. And I truly almost felt like crying because I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have a job to do. It didn't last long, 5 or 10 minutes later, a student had a question and I went over and was able to help them. But it was very, very scary at first. Now I find that to be just these moments of just complete bliss. It's like an extra 15 minutes of plan time. I can get onto Blackboard and grade a journal during that time. I can get in and check on what quizzes those kids have taken on Blackboard during that day and just kind of see where I'm watching them learn within that learning management during those little free time that I now have. And so I'm no longer scared of that. I welcome it, and I really enjoy it. Let's see here. This next video we're going to show is of an elementary parent. And they're talking about blended learning. I'm going to go ahead and mute.
My son Brandon is in a second grade blended class, and we have noticed with him that it has given him, it's just opened his mind to the questions he wants to ask through research. He's not stuck in a box of the questions that are normally asked. He wants to find more answers. He wants to find different answers, and he gets to do this on his own pace, which is kind of amazing. And when he gets home, he tells us about what he's working on because he's really excited about it. And then he wants to go to the computer and find out more information about it. He doesn't want it to just stop at school. He wants to keep digging, and he'll ask us questions, and we'll give him an answer, and he'll say, no, I don't want the answer everybody knows. I want to find something they don't know. So it's just given them the ability and to really learn how to learn and want to know more.
Okay.
So this is Angelique again, and you know, a big piece of this rolling out successfully in our district is how do we support our teachers, our professional educators. This was so new for them, and we were really asking them to take a big, bold step forward, to take risks with us. And that's hard as professional educators. We're used to being right, we're used to being almost perfect, and we're used to not making mistakes. And this called for teachers to make mistakes, and to make mistakes on stage, in front of students, in front of their colleagues, in front of parents. And it really talked about what anonymity could the teacher control within their classroom. So you've heard Danira and Diana talk about the choices and the decisions that they had to make within their own setting, and it was about finding that right blend. When we got involved in the field test, we didn't dictate how much of the day the teachers would blend or what content areas. What we did do was encourage and support them to find the right fit for them, to find the lesson, find the content area, or the part of the day that they wanted to blend, that they felt they would be most successful with. So it was less about us dictating and more about where can we start out successfully and continue to support you. As we move on to the next slide, you see that it's really moving away from the students sitting passively and more for active learning. And we'll hear that now in a video from a student that Diana had last year, 5th grade, and this is William.
Just a note, too, that you can use the controls in the bottom right corner to expand your videos. All right, I'm going to mute to play it now.
The learning is that you can work at your own pace and you don't have to wait for a teacher to go and this one, do this one. But then, on the other hand, you actually have to do the work. Like at the science fair, they don't, you can go as much as you want as far as ahead, but, and you don't have to slow down, then you'll get it earlier and you can move on to other projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. This is Diana. William is actually my student this year, and he's hilarious because he is that kid that he has totally thrived in this environment, and that he isn't just sitting there waiting for me to dole out that information. He can move at his own pace. He loves technology. He loves what he can do, the products he can produce through the technology to show and demonstrate his learning. He really, really, really likes that. Other kids that when I talk to them about what it is they enjoy, they've often said, you know, I used to get out a book and just read during math class last year because it wasn't at my level. I already knew everything. And this year I don't have that. Just last week I had a student be like, can you assign me more homework? I really need to be doing more. I don't feel like I'm challenging myself. And that just seems, I mean, it sounds silly almost, but it's so empowering for them to be in charge of their learning. I have kids come in at 7:30 in the morning and start working on math when school doesn't start till 8:05. So the engagement and the confidence and the desire to learn more is just, that's what blended learning gives the student.
So this is Angelique again, and just as we want to personalize the learning for each student, another support that we established was personalized learning for the teachers during the field test, and we gained this through setting up collaboration time, and that was having the teachers come out of the classroom for a full day. About 6 full days were scheduled intermittently across 4 to 6 weeks, and they spent time together. And this was kindergarten through the high school class that Danira was blending. And we didn't set up a very tight, specific agenda, just like a teacher would with a lesson. Instead, what we did was model the blending we wanted to see occur in their classroom. So the agenda wasn't dictated minute by minute. Rather, we would take the first 30 minutes of each full day, reflect, talk about what was working, where our challenges were, talked about our celebrations, and then the remaining 7.5 hours were up to the teachers to determine what they wanted to learn and know and experience with each other. So they would sit and talk about what they'd learned in Blackboard, what they were getting ready to implement, what they wanted to learn, how they wanted to use the tools, and how blended learning was going between their classes. So it was a great opportunity for us to model what we wanted to see occur in the classroom and step back from dictating what the teachers had to learn and know during each one of those collaborations. So when we talk about a formula, is there one for blended learning? And if you remember, we were kindergarten through high school, and we had a lot of skeptics tell us that this couldn't possibly work in kindergarten. In fact, we have the University of Kansas in our backyard, and the Dean of the School of Education, Dr. Rick Ginsburg, wanted to come see for himself because KU uses Blackboard, but he couldn't imagine a 5-year-old, like you see here, logging in to access information through a learning management system. So while we feared that maybe our youngest students couldn't handle logging in, we had to open up our mindsets, and that's going from a fixed mindset to this could only possibly work with more advanced students to one of growth. And we discovered the power of the blended learning for all of our 5- and 6-year-olds. So what you see in this picture is a 5-year-old logging in and getting ready to take an assessment, while her friend sitting next to her has elected to use pencil and paper to address his own learning style. So in this video that Katie's going to play for us, we want to hear again from another parent who happens to be at the middle school level to share how blended learning has affected her student.
She does leave mid-class, so the ability to get to Blackboard and get her assignments and all of that I think it's been great because she doesn't fall behind, and we're not constantly emailing or sending papers back and forth. I feel it seems like she's able to stay on top of it without even being in that class 100% of the time.
I think right here is where we finish our information that we're sharing out, and we'd like to open up the floor for questions from the participants, and that's how we grow ourselves the most, is hearing the questions that our professional colleagues have for us. So thank you again for the opportunity today to share our stories.
Thank you so much, Angelique and Danira and
Diana.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Diana, this has just been amazing. So many great stories along the way. We definitely want to open it up for questions. So whether you prefer to use the private chat or the Q&A, if you could please start typing questions. The first one, she heard in the first video that the school was piling Canvas but now uses Blackboard. This is Hildy from Arlington, and she would really love to have any information you would like to share as to why you at Lawrence chose Blackboard over Canvas. Anything you'd be willing to share, but she's also, just asking for a follow-up after the call, if I can put her in touch with you, Angelique. But that is the first question that was posted in the chat to me.
Okay, I'd love to follow up with her personally, but big picture, when we got in and field tested and played around with Blackboard and had the demonstration, what we experienced was more of an understanding of a K-12 approach and a tool that would meet the needs of our span of grades versus just a higher ed tool. And we felt that Blackboard was just drive off the lot ready for us to implement. We were bringing on several professional educators in our expansion during this year. We were adding at least 40 classrooms, so we needed to be up and ready with a tool that can meet the demands pretty quickly. We have a very skilled and educated staff here at Lawrence Public Schools, as do most districts, and they have a tendency to want to move pretty fast, so we needed a tool that could meet that demand.
Thank you. So I'll be sure to connect you, Hildy, after the webinar today, but that gives you some information about that choice. And Larry has a question from Arlington as well, a couple questions. The first is, can you tell us about the professional development that you had prepared you for the transition to blended learning? And then the second question is, Danira, there's definitely a focus on math classes. So the second question is, have all curriculum areas adopted this approach? So I'm not going to make it more complicated, but I'm going to add one other question because I know a lot about the composition of your blended learning implementation. Can you also speak to the grade levels that are piloting blended learning? And I have those numbers handy, Angelique, if you don't. So first, professional development to prepare the transition to blended. Second, what about content areas and grade levels?
This is Danira. I was one of the original 8 teachers that started blended learning in Lawrence Public Schools. And as part of a professional development, it was mostly setting us up to collaborate with each other and to learn about blended learning our own selves through experimentation and research. When we were first introduced to this topic, I think it was in the month of November, I spent November and December researching as much as I could about blended learning. All I could find was philosophy and vision of what it could be. I couldn't find a practical recipe, which that panicked me. I needed a recipe and I couldn't find one. However, I had committed to this experiment, so I was going to see it through. During our transition into blended learning, we were meeting every, I think, 3 or 4 weeks, and it was a classroom of kindergarten teachers, 3rd grade teachers, 5th grade teachers, 4th grade teachers, and then I was the high school representative. And we would discuss activities that we were having our students work with, how we were presenting lessons, and I learned so much by listening to my kindergarten colleagues as well as my 5th grade colleagues with regards to how to teach. There was a lot of learning that was happening, and we were doing it amongst ourselves. Every single time Angelique would come into our room just to check up on us, she would always remind us that the smartest person in the room was the room, and so that we had each other to learn from. So our professional development was not guided by anyone. It was guided by our needs and us filling those needs, and the district providing us space for that to happen.
And as we worked together, we kind of decided, this is Diana, we kind of all discussed how math might be the easiest to begin with to blend because of its linearness and how it does have this kind of instruction and practice, and a lot of us wanted to try the flipping first. And so we started with math. I probably really took off and blended everything in my classroom quite quickly because I think it fit for me. Science became very easy. I could send home some information via video or through the learning management system for kids to read about something for science the next day. And then you have this mass amount of time for lab all of a sudden, instead of having to read up on everything during class and then taking a lab and trying to divide it up over days and breaking it out. Quickly after that, I added social studies and then followed up with ELA. So during probably the 6 months when I was entirely enmeshed and blending during my pilot year, I would say by February of that year, I was doing all of it. It just starts to come to you. You're like, oh, well, now I can blend this. And I feel like all the rest of the 8 and those 40 that we added this year are kind of doing the same. They're dipping their toe with math, and then they begin to expand it out over and over and over. We have middle school teachers that are blending ELA and social studies and science. So there's lots of different curriculum and content that is being blended, not just math.
As well as professional development. My elementary math TOSA and I have started creating our course on mindset, fixed versus growth, book study for Carol Dweck, and we have built it in Blackboard. And we are ready to launch it on Wednesday. We'll be blending with Blackboard with our staff, and I believe it's going to be the first direct professional development using this mode for our district.
So Katie, this is Angelique again. Did you want me to talk about the breakdown in numbers or what that looks like across the span of our buildings? Would that help?
That would be perfect. Could you start with your 8 classes in the pilot and then the 80 that have been live this entire school year, the breakdown there?
Okay. So our field test with the 8 classrooms included kindergarten, 1 4th grade class, 2 5th grade classrooms. Diana, who's sitting here, was one of those. 2 7th grade classrooms, and then Danira's high school pre-calculus algebra 1 classroom. In kindergarten, she started originally with math and ended up blending all contents by the end of the field test. 4th grade, she stuck with math and dipped her toe a little bit into the social studies. And our 5th grades, you just heard Diana talk about how she expanded into all of the core content areas, so social studies, science, English language arts, and math. And then our 7th grades, where they become more content specific, we had 1 7th grade language arts class and 1 7th grade social studies, and then again the high school. So our intent in expanding, which we are just bringing to a close this year at the end of our year, was to put 2 classrooms in each of our 20 buildings. We have 14 elementaries, 4 middle schools, and 2 high schools. And what we learned with the 8 field testers was that it was a little bit isolating to be the only one blending in your building. So that was part of our lesson in how can we support then the next rollout, which was our purpose in adding 2 per building. So we let the building principals select the grades and the teachers that they felt were the early adopters and would be most successful with this. So this year we have 40, but in addition to the 40, we also have 32 additional rooms, and the story is interesting there. While we had finite district funds to build out the 40, the buildings used their own capital funds to add the pieces and parts that they felt really supported the blended learning, getting rid of the desks, introducing the round tables, the 32-inch flat screen monitors, to really propel an additional set of classrooms in their buildings. So that's what brings us up to about the 80 number, and this year we have every grade level included, kindergarten through high school. At the high school level, we have every core content, science, social studies, math, and language arts. Same for our middle school, and then all within our elementary grades as well.
That's awesome, and I just want to mention right now that we will certainly be following up with everyone on the webinar, because Angelique and Diana and Danira and others at Lawrence are working with Blackboard on a case study to document their successes with blended learning. So we have a case study coming in the near future that we will follow up to this group, not 2 or 3 days after this, but we'll follow up a second time with that. Let's see, what other questions do you have? You can post them in the chat. Be sure to post to all participants, or post in the Q&A as well.
You know, one thing I might add, Katie, is go ahead.
I was reading you another question, but I was muted. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
How are you handling the problem of sufficient bandwidth? Do internet connections at school always work when needed with so many students and teachers online at once? that's a problem that another district on the webinar is experiencing?
Okay. Recently, this is Angelique. Recently, we passed a $92.5 million bond issue, and a portion of those funds were to increase our infrastructure, knowing that this was on our horizon. So we're working feverishly in the background to make sure that our bandwidth, our infrastructure, and our supports from human resources, teacher on special assignment, which is Danira's position, are all well poised to support this expansion as it increases each year. So we did have some funds coming in via the bond to work on that infrastructure.
Great, and I didn't mean to interrupt you by unmuting myself before. You had something you were going to add as well, Angelique.
Yes, we were talking about how we were watching our teachers change and shift their instructional styles at the district office where I'm located. We also needed to take a hard look at the supports that we provided to teachers. So a structure that was in place when I came on board 7 years ago in this position was a setup we referred to as curriculum specialists, and they were all administrators, and they represented or coordinated specific content areas. And what we were finding out and discovering was well-intentioned professionals wanting to support teachers hadn't been in the classroom teaching for quite some time. And to, I think, effectively support blended learning, we needed partners that had just come from the classroom, understood the day-to-day expectations and what really occurs. So that boots on the ground support needed to be from a peer. So no longer do we have a team of curriculum specialists, administrators. Instead, we've hired dynamic teachers like Danira and Diana to be teachers on special assignments. So they're still on a teaching contract, but they specifically support the content area that they taught, and the fact that they blended as well makes them an ideal partner in supporting this initiative.
That's a great point to add as well, Angelique. Thank you. So that's definitely a commonality I've seen among successful programs, whether it be blended or one-to-one, but shifting resources from one area to make better sense in another area with the new model. So that's a great point. I've got a follow-up question for Diana. Diana, when we spoke a couple weeks ago, you shared with me an innovative example of how you're using Blackboard in your 5th grade classroom called History Mystery, I believe, and just how your students love to share any types of work, how you provide a lot of choice as to how they can demonstrate knowledge and skills. So could you share both lots of different ways that students can demonstrate knowledge and skills to you, how they like to share it in Blackboard, and can you share with us a little bit about your history mystery approach?
Sure. I'll start with the history mystery. As you can tell from my picture at the beginning, I don't mind dressing up and putting silly things on my head. And so for the history mystery, I put on costumes or outfits, and I read parts of a history mystery story to students in segments, and then they go and investigate something that I've asked them to and keep it in their history journal. And then at the end, they choose a theory about the mystery, and they'll get into a group together, and they'll research more in depth that theory, and then they'll have a debate and try to persuade another class as to which one really happened. It's kind of fun. One of my favorite things about the different modalities that Blackboard enables me to use and to reach my children is with the creating of quizzes and tests. I'm able to put pictures and video clip in there so that any student, I no longer have pull out for my students for testing and stuff. There's more of a push in, and so they're, again, that what I had mentioned earlier, that blended learning equality that kind of comes in with the technology that we have is so nice. Products that kids can produce for me, when they can submit videos to me, or instead of maybe typing, if you don't have a strong writer, They can submit videos to me. So there's just different ways that it can really teach to their strengths. I don't know if I'm hitting everything there for you, but
No, that's great. Maybe just add a little bit about how they share with their journal that's available to the class and blogs. Just, they don't just create these different modality projects like videos and things, but how they're able to share those with the class and, that part too.
Absolutely. So the journals can either be privately shared with me or they can share them with the class. And so it just depending on what we're doing or what I feel needs to be, there can be the open class journal, and then their peers can respond to something like if you're talking about the setting of a story and people want to chime in or discuss figurative language, that can either be in a journal that's shared publicly or on a discussion board. Or even in a chat room. And so it's great to post something and then have all the students chime in. Sometimes they feel less inhibited because they're doing it, or maybe they log on from home. Another thing that is just amazing is now when my students are absent, they join my class from home. And so I pretty much don't really have absences I don't have absences anymore. I mean, physically I do, but the students log in to participate, and they don't miss out, and they really love that part about it. I'm trying to think of what else.
That's great. I definitely want to be sure to make sure we've addressed all the questions from everyone on the webinar. Again, don't hesitate to post in chat or the Q&A, but this has really been incredible, Diana, Danira, and Angelique. I'm not moving forward to say that this is the end of questions, but I do, want to add a little summary here at the end. Hold on one second here. I wanted to thank everyone for participating today in the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series session. We are always open to new ideas for topics for the series, so let me know if you have an idea or you have an interest in presenting for a future session. Just email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. Everyone will be receiving a recording and the presentation slides within a few days, by email, and an invitation to the Course Sites PLC. We will follow up a little later down the road, or around 3 to 4 weeks from now, with the case study. And be sure to join us and bring your colleagues for our next K-12 BIT session, which will take place on Monday, April 21st at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Be a trailblazer in the digital age with Ruth Payne and Linda Schreiber from Clay County Public Schools. I can't thank Lawrence Public Schools, Angelique, Danira, Diana enough for the presentation today. I'm still watching for questions here in the chat, but this was truly excellent and very exciting. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Katie. We appreciated the opportunity.
And thanks everyone for joining us today. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a great day.